Hi, you guys. It is, excuse me, it is Sunday, January the 16th, 9:45 a.m. Sun is up, and I have a beach. And how are you guys doing? It is Sunday morning, January 16th, 9:45 a.m., and I have a beach. I said maybe it's because of the displaced volcano, right? Maybe the underwater volcano just just a ways from Tonga. They said that it was an enormous volcano, and the volcano is no longer there. Right? Is that where the water went? Because there's no water. Like, I have a beach. I've never had a beach. I've never had a beach. And today we have a beach. And all of the homeowners, all my neighbors, are all walking out on their docks, their piers, and they're looking around like, why do we suddenly have a beach? So it is pretty interesting, to say the least. It would take a scientist to figure out the amount of the displaced water, but once you split, see, that's my thing. Once you spread the law, I mean, I'm sure there was an enormous amount of mass that was lost, right, after the explosion. That would be then replaced with water where the mountain previously stood. That would now be covered with water. But what would that translate into across the whole world? I mean, like an inch lower, right? We're at like 12 or 15 feet, 16 feet lower than what it should be. Pretty interesting. Huh. Anyway, we'll see. Let's see what happens. Abandonment. Yes. We're going to talk about abandonment. Why? Why are we going to talk about abandonment? Well, the reason that I want to talk about abandonment is because it seems to be the biggest component in anticipatory fear, right? I actually work quite a bit with anticipatory anxiety because I work in the medical field. So my patients are looking at countless ongoing surgeries, right? They're looking at constant, never-ending medication, shots, medical testing, physical therapy, which physical therapy can be excruciating in some orthopedic conditions, burn injuries, things like that, right? So one of the big problems that you have when you're working with these long-standing and severe physical medical problems is the development of anticipatory anxiety. And so I'm accustomed to working with it in a setting where there's very real danger. Yeah, I mean, it's a real thing. If someone says, well, next week you'll be having 3 surgeries, that's real. That's not an imaginary event that you're getting anxious from. It's real. It is going to happen, and it is going to be painful. It is going to be difficult. And so the anticipatory anxiety is the body's way of trying to avoid very real fear and damage. Hey, Barry behind bars, you know what? This is what we talked about. You're being intrusive right now, Barry. Yeah, you need to relax a little bit. We're not singing together. We're not making music, beautiful music together. You're supposed to be listening. Okay, be good. I'm gonna cover your cage. I'm so sorry about my silly bird. Okay. So in the setting where someone is having many medical procedures, the anticipatory anxiety is quite real, right? But anticipatory anxiety comes in many settings. Can y'all excuse me a minute? Let me do something about Barry. He's being a nuisance. Okay, I'll be right back. I am so sorry for that. Thank y'all for being kind and understanding about domestic life. Okay. All right. So, in the case of in a medical setting, someone that's got a severe either acute or chronic condition, then the anticipatory is very real, and it serves to re-get the point. The process of it is to try to give the person a sense of control, that their body is aware that there's impending danger, and so their brain is working in overtime to try to figure out a way to avoid the upcoming danger. But there's many people experience anticipatory that bird is going to get it. Many people experience anticipatory anxiety in settings where it's imaginary doom, right? It's imaginary that something horrible is going to happen to you. And at the heart of this type of anticipatory anxiety is the fear of abandonment 9 times out of 10. Right? Now there's some exceptions to every rule. But when people are dramatically trying to hang on and make things last exactly like they are today, it's a fear of the unknown, right? They're anticipating that things could not possibly be better, that change is a bad thing because there's no guarantee that at the end of change you're going to be comfortable or happy or better. In fact, many of these people have really, really low self-esteem. They have really low self-esteem. Their self-concept, knowing who they are and their place in the world, is non-existent. So they're a little bit like Barry hanging on to a palm tree frond as a hurricane comes in. I know this palm tree. I've been in this palm tree before, on bright, shiny days when there's no wind. This palm tree has been safe previously. And so I'm just going to keep on hanging on, and the wind gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse. And the harder the wind blows and the wilder the palm frond goes around, the bird hangs on harder and harder and says, I'm not letting go, because this was once a really safe palm tree. In truth, Barry could just let go of the palm tree and go fly into the garage and be perfectly safe and happy, right? So now then, so the fear then becomes not so much that they don't want to give up what they have. The fear is, will I find anything better? That becomes the fear. That's the problem with anticipatory anxiety. Will I be able to manage? Think about a different context. Think about, like, let's say that you're a business person, a businesswoman, and you have to give an important presentation to convince some company, someone to let you handle their account, right? You have to do this. You're professional, you know your stuff, you're good in your field. You plan out your presentation, you practice it, you over practice it, you prepare. Inevitably, there are people, especially people that prepare. The morning of the presentation, they're a basket case. What? And their friends or their family, they're looking at them like, what's wrong with you? You made the presentation, you know the content in the presentation, and you've practiced the presentation, you know what it is down to the minute. What could possibly go wrong? And what you're expecting to hear is nothing, because I'm the one that's in control of this, right? But instead, what these people that have anticipatory anxiety do is they begin to weave to you a tale of extraordinary mishap. Well, this could happen. Maybe if I'm on the way to the office, this could happen, and the car could happen, and then this could happen. Or what if I do this? And what if this happens? And then this is going to happen. And I don't know what I'm going to do if that happens. And these are all things that have not happened. These are things that you don't have any idea if they will happen or not. They just invent this never ending disaster, right? Never ending disaster. So what about YouTube? We've seen this. Remember the young man that committed suicide? What was his name? Began with a K. I can't remember his name. He was a creator, young 20-something creator. He did gaming, and his channel blew up. He had a lot of view. He had like 300, 400,000 subscribers, 75, 100,000 views, on a video, and he grew. He really blew up. Well, he got to be, excuse me, he got to be around 16, 17, 18, and he began having some mental health issues, right? Began having some trouble. And as he began having these mental health situations, other creators began making videos about him and the odd behaviors, the strange things that he was doing. And then, of course, he would react in anger or hysteria, and then people would unsubscribe and leave. And through a process that sort of grew and took on a life of its own, before it was all over with, he was frantically trying to keep his subscribers. He was doing outrageous things to try to keep them coming to the channel. There was a young woman, same type of situation. As a young or an older adolescent teenager, she had built up a really, really big channel. When she became 25, 28 years old, the demographic naturally changed. She couldn't continue to be the perky, cute, little girl. And so her demographic changed, and the number on her views changed dramatically. And both these situations, both of these examples that I'm using, these were young people that in their minds, they had their self-concept had become one of, I am a successful YouTuber. I have been blessed with being a successful YouTuber. This is going to be my career. And we all know how fickle YouTube is, right? Subscribers come and go all the time. So at both of them, as they began to lose their old crowd and the views were going down, they panicked. They panicked, and rather than growing with the changes of the channel and be open to new ideas and develop the channel to grow with their developmental age, they panicked and they tried to grab on and hang on to that palm tree blowing in hurricane force winds. And it became a train wreck. For her, she actually ended up doing pornography. It was small at first, it led slowly, and then before it was over with, that's what got the views. That's what got the attention, even negative attention. For him, he ended up committing suicide. So, and please, he also was having some really significant mental health problems. So it was a very complicated situation. But the point being that as our lives begin to change for whatever reason, whether it's our YouTube channel, it's our marriage, or it's our job, or it's our family structure, for whatever reason that our lives begin to change, if we're not certain of who we are, and we have not constructed a life where we have a variety of interests and activities, then sometimes the change in one thing can be so frightening, it can be so scary that you simply can't imagine that it could be any better, and you hang on to basically what becomes the Titanic, and it pulls you down with it. So what's going on with this whole abandonment issue? Whether you think you're being abandoned, or your fear is that you're going to be abandoned by a lover, or you're going to be abandoned by a parent, like an aging problem that you think mom or dad is going to pass away, and oh my God, I'm never going to be able to manage that. Or your abandonment centers upon your job. Maybe you get fired from your job, or you get downsized. Maybe it's a YouTube channel. Maybe it's the problem of being a ballerina, and then you hit puberty and suddenly your body is not cooperating anymore, right? All of those things they prompt the same feeling of abandonment, that this is something that really, really mattered to me, and now it's leaving me. And it leaves you with a lot of conflicting emotions. That sometimes you're very, very angry, sometimes you're terrified, sometimes your fight or flight response is to fight and you become a maniac. But if you fight against the natural changes of life, then you are going to pay the price of hanging on to a palm frond in the middle of a hurricane. Not a pleasant experience, right? So what do? That becomes then the big question. If the basic overwhelming fear is, I've liked things how they've been, and now I see them changing, and I don't know what it's going to be like in the future, and I fear that I won't find the same sense of satisfaction or success or sex or love, and I don't want my life to be that. You think of your worst fear and you think, oh, if I lose that, that's what I'm going to become, right? Thank you, Mabel. Welcome. Can you have this feeling of abandonment without any apparent reason? How can one identify why I'm feeling this way? You can have a sense of abandonment while as you sit in your life and you look around at everything and you think, well, nothing's changed for me. Nothing's changed for me. Things seem to be exactly as they have been. It can be something as simple as complicated as like an existential crisis. It can be something like, wow, I can't believe I can't believe I turned 50, or I can't believe I turned 70. I always said that I was going to go to Machu Picchu. I always said I was going to learn to scuba dive. I always said I was going to go back to school and get a master's degree or a doctorate degree. You can't have that. And it, while we wouldn't really call it abandonment, maybe we use the term abandonment synonymously with betrayal, right? That somehow the universe betrayed you by not giving you the opportunities that you really had wanted. Now, people that work in the field of geriatric psychology, one of the things that they spend a lot of time doing with their patients is something that we call acceptance therapy. I don't know if you guys, everybody's heard of CBT, but not many people have heard of acceptance, or ACT. There's that word again. That's my thinking word. When you hear me say I'm thinking. So with acceptance therapy, the goal becomes peace, right? And this was actually at the heart of my dissertation, Mechanisms of Change Following Trauma and Loss. That when your goal becomes peace, then part of finding peace and embracing peace, PEACE, is to acknowledge those things that you had thought you would accomplish, those things you thought you would do. Maybe you have a 5-year-old who dies of cancer, and it's not just the simple act of dying, losing your child, not seeing their happy, smiling face every day. That's excruciating all by itself. But there's other layers. There's multiple layers of loss. And included in that scenario would be all of the lost dreams for the future. Oh, look at my little girl. She's so beautiful. One day we're going to have a big wedding. One day we're going to have parties. One day we're going to go to Disney World. One day we're going to do this. One day we're going to do that, right? So you lose the you lose the essential joys of daily contact, hugging your baby, loving your child. But there are other levels of loss. And I would say that is exactly the same thing with any experience that any of us have in life, is that we have the immediate essential experience. And then we think, well, once I deal with that essential experience, then it's all going to get better. And that's just not the case, because there's multiple layers that run parallel to the essential losses, like the dreams that you lose, like the future potential. Let me tell you something. The loss of potential is very difficult to manage. The loss of future potential and the ability to daydream about how things will be in the future is really, really important to people's self-concept and happiness, right? So to lose that multifaceted layer, that is part of the abandonment process. So to answer Mabel's question, in terms of your essential experience, things don't look like they've changed, right? You look around your life, everything seems just as it has been. But things like aging or health status, those things can disrupt the layers that are underneath the essential experience. And maybe it's a process like, I always wanted to be a ballerina, and I'm really unfulfilled now. I can't put a lid tart on and go dance because I'm middle-aged and I weigh 165 pounds or 180 pounds or whatever. What do you do then? If that's the case, whether it's real abandonment or it's, I don't want to say imaginary abandonment, because imaginary abandonment gets a bad rap. Non-imaginary abandonment, but a multifocal abandonment, right? Maybe somebody didn't, maybe your husband or your wife didn't walk out on you. Maybe they didn't leave you and abandon you in your home, but maybe they haven't spoken to you in a year, right? Maybe they haven't hugged you or talked to you or laughed with you. That's another form of abandonment. That's real. Their physical body may be in the room, but those multifocal layers beneath it are not what you previously had enjoyed, right? That's why divorce is like death. You lose the future. Exactly, Sketty. You lose the potential for how things could have gotten better or worse or different. Once the divorce occurs, now all the potential ends, and you have to begin to rebuild. So, yeah, so a fear of abandonment is a real thing. And anytime you see someone who's having a great deal of anxiety, if you take some time and talk to them about what it is they're anticipating, what is going to be coming down the road toward you, what do you see, what do you envision is going to happen, that's going to get you to the heart of what they're really dealing with, right? So in the case of abandonment or anticipatory anxiety, this is that situation that we talk about. Most of the most horrible things that I've experienced never happened to me. Meaning you thought it up in your mind, you imagine that this terrible thing could happen or was going to happen. But in truth, looking back over your life, those horrible moments never came to fruition. How many of you've gotten on an airplane and you're sitting there and you're thinking, okay, I need to send a note, the text to this person and that person. I love you. You're great. Just in case the plane goes down, right? Everybody does it. The whole world does it. And then the plane lands and then you forget that you sent the text. Okay. So most of the horrible things that we've ever experienced have never happened. Okay. Now then, the problem though, you say, well, what are you talking about then? Why is it a problem? Well, here's why it's a problem. Because you are acting as if it will happen. And physically, you're making yourself sick. The hysteria, the anxiety, the shaking hands, the tight throat, you can't talk, you got tears in your eyes, you feel nauseated, headache, all those things are based on fiction. They're just based on your fantasy world, and it's not going to come to pass 9 times out of 10, right? One thing I watched, I remember so well, when COVID first hit, right? It blew up so fast, remember? And my husband worked in Egypt, and he literally left. He'd been in Egypt maybe 3 days. He hadn't been there very long at all. It's a 24-hour trip if you're lucky and your flights turn out just right. It can be much longer. It can be up to 2 days, 3 days to get there, depending on your flights and your layover. So it's on the other side of the globe. So he'd been there. He had left about 3 days before. He'd been there about 18 hours, something like that. And I was watching television, watching this whole COVID thing. And Trump came on TV, addressed the nation, and said, we're fixing to close things down. We're not going to be accepting flights from Europe into the United States. We're not going to be accepting flights from this area and that area. And I was like, wait a minute. What do you mean? Because in 4 weeks, my husband's supposed to be coming home and he doesn't want to live in Egypt full time. So I called him and I said, you need to check out the news because it looks like they're fixing to lock everything down. And while I was on the phone with him, the company had a vacation plan, not a travel planner, had a travel planner that worked for his company. And so he calls Bill and he says, "Hey man, we got to get you out of there. I don't know if you're watching the news, And he's like, "Yeah, I'm on the phone with my wife right now." And so they were still running flights through Heathrow in Great Britain. He never went through Great Britain. He always went through like Amsterdam or Europe somewhere. And so the guy said, "But you gotta be at the airport in like 40 minutes. Like you got to be there. If you don't make that flight, you're not coming home until they open the place back up." So he just hangs up the phone, jumped on, goes, and that was the story. So that was real anxiety, right? That was the anticipation that he's never going to make that flight. He's never going to make that flight, and he is going to end up being in Egypt for 3, 4, 6, 12 months because we didn't know what they were going to do. We didn't know how long they were going to close down flights coming into the United States. Now, it just so happened next day or two, they came out and said, "Well, no, if you're a citizen of the United States, we'll let you back in." But they didn't tell us that night when Trump addressed the nation. So that was real anxiety. And there was no sleeping, there was no resting. I was pacing the floor, and my brain was trying to make plans. Okay, how are we going to do this? If he's living in Egypt full time for a year and I'm here, and how are we going to manage this? What am I going to do? Right? So that was a real situation, and thankfully it did not come to pass. But what about the people that quit their jobs, walked off their jobs because they didn't want to take a vaccination, right? It's their right. You guys that know me, you're part of my channel, y'all know I'm 100% about the importance of the U.S. Constitution, and I stand by it 100%. So if you don't want to take a vaccination, by God, that is your right, and I'll stand with you side by side and fight for your right, even though I'm vaccinated, right? It's your choice. But so many people that I talk to where I work, I work in four. I work in 4 different locations. 3 locations are quite significant, and then I've got another one that I go, 1 day a week. We had a lot of healthcare workers that refused the vaccination, believe it or not. That's something that hasn't been reported. There are a lot of doctors out there, physicians, that did not take the vaccination. What they did is they were tested. They found out that they had antibodies, and they went to the administration and said, scientifically, this is the wrong thing to do. My body has the antibiotics that it needs. I'm not taking your vaccination. And they left the job, and nurses left the job, and respiratory therapists left the job. Why? Mandated vaccinations. These were educated medical people. They had their testing. They knew they had developed antibodies, whether they had been exposed to COVID at some point or whatever. Their bodies were fine. Why do they refuse why do they refuse to let these people work when they have the same blood as people that have had the vaccination? Fear. We all got to do what they're telling us to do, and we can't think on our own because we don't know what's going to happen. And yet, many of the people that refuse the vaccination are the same. I don't know what's going to happen. The vaccination is new. We don't really know much about it. I don't want to take it because I don't know what's going to happen. So, and those people now, those people felt bitter because they felt like that their administration abandoned them. The doctors felt like they had put their time in and worked hard, and now they were giving back a critical service to society, And now they were being told, you don't matter, go, because you refuse to do something that doesn't make sense. So they felt abandoned. So there was that question, what do we do? Like, we're medical professionals. We're licensed physicians and surgeons and nurses and respiratory therapists, and our country has abandoned us. Our administration has abandoned us. What do we do? And I said, well, whatever you do, don't hang on to a palm frond in hurricane force winds. If you have conviction and you know that you're not going to have the vaccination, then when you walk out the door, when the day comes and you have to leave, when you walk out the door, have a plan. Know what you're going to do when you walk out the door. Don't walk away from something, walk into something new. That actually is the same exact conceptualization for somebody going through divorce. Don't leave the marriage, walk away from the marriage because it's a thing to leave. When you walk out the door, make sure you're going to something. Make your plans so that when you leave, you're going into something that is going to be interesting and something that you're going to enjoy. Right? So what happens to anticipatory anxiety? Let's work with divorce, okay? Because that's the one that most people know something about. When it comes in stages, right? There's this recognition of, things are not working out very well here. And then as the months go by, maybe there's multiple attempts to try to fix the situation or repair the relationship or whatever. But each time the chasm grows larger and larger. And pretty soon the writing is on the wall and you're like, yeah, now she's having an affair, time to go. Once your wife starts screwing around, it's time to hit the road, right? So then this is what we hear most is, so I packed my bags up and I went to a hotel. Okay. And then what was your plan? What were you going to do? What was your plan once you got to the hotel? Well, I don't know. I don't know. I didn't have a plan. I just knew that I had to get divorced. So you left a place, you did not plan to go to a new place, a better place, an improved situation, a goal attainment. Yeah, pretty much. I have no idea what I'm going to do. And then miraculously, when you begin working with people in setting goals, number one, you figure out what some things that you want to do, what some things you want to accomplish, what sounds good. And then after they pick one or two things that sounds good, then you break it down into measurable steps, which, objectives, right? Well, today is Monday. So tomorrow, Tuesday, you need to go get your business license. You need to go apply for your passport. You need to go to your bank, whatever the steps are going to be that are going to lead them to whatever goals that they have identified. And then sometimes you never see these people again. They don't come back because they're happy. They're going somewhere. They're not running away. Right? I would have said exactly the same thing to the two young YouTube creators that I talked about at the beginning of this. I don't know what to do. I built up such a big, successful channel. I was making money. I thought I was going to be able to do this the rest of my life. And now I can't. People are leaving my channel. I don't know where they're going. I don't know who these people are. What am I going to do? Well, you can either hang on out of fear of abandonment as your channel gets smaller and smaller, or you can let go and say, you know what? This was a great ride while it lasted. Leave your old stuff up. Let people come look occasionally. That's all good. But make a new plan. If what you really, really want is to continue in the YouTube creator world, now you got to ask yourself some questions. Well, is it that I really, really want to be a YouTube creator because it feels good, because I'm having fun putting my craft up for the world to see? Or is it just about I need that attention from 200,000 faceless strangers? And if the reason that you're trying to do a YouTube channel is all about how many people are subscribing or how many views you're getting, you may be doing it for the wrong reason. And it may be very unhealthy for you, because we all know what goes up must come down. And if you're not willing to adapt, you're going to have a problem. Now, I'm the kind of person, I'll run around in my backyard all day long, throwing a ball up in the air. And when it comes down, I catch it and I throw it back up in there again, right? I juggle things. It doesn't freak me out when something begins to lose its utility. I just go back to the drawing board and think, hey, what do I want to do now? My goal in life is peace. My goal in life is to wake up in the morning and be interested in what I have to do. I said many, many years ago, the worst thing I've ever experienced, I'm talking about vocational wise, the worst thing I've ever experienced was watching a clock. How many of you guys have watched the clock? It's misery. To know that you are at a job that you hate, or maybe you don't hate it, maybe it's just unfulfilling. Maybe you feel like it's a waste of time. Maybe you're not able to do the things that you enjoy when you're at that job. Maybe the people you work with are not nice people. But instead of being at work and having your mind stimulated and fulfilled, so that when you look up, it's 4:15 and you're like, wow, it's time to go home. This is awesome. If you're the person that you force yourself to do whatever you're supposed to be doing, and then you look at the clock feeling certain that it is lunchtime and the clock says 9:15, it's the worst. Have any of you guys ever been clock watchers? It is, Cinnamon. It's a horrible experience. Listen how bad it is, okay? So my husband's family, his mom and dad, his dad is a preacher and a therapist, right? So it's very well educated man. And his mom is educated. She's a teacher, and they're wonderful people, really, really great people. But his mom is like the perfect mother, right? Like if there was a mother that was described in a book, a novel, it would be a description of her. She's like the best. She's the stereotypical role model for mom. Yeah. So when her kids got in trouble, my husband, when her kids got in trouble, they would have to sit in the corner like a lot of us do. We had our kids, our grandkids go to timeout, right? So their timeout was a little chair. And they would, little kids would have to go sit in the chair. And then she would take one of those old clocks, the old wind up clock had the bell on the top of it. And she'd do that clock and she'd put 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever the age of the child is. That's how long the kid should be in timeout. So if it's a 7-year-old, they should be in timeout 7 minutes. If it's a 3-year-old, they should be in timeout 3 minutes. Although that's a little bit long for a 3-year-old, but you get the idea, the concept, right? Putting a 5-year-old in timeout for 45 minutes, it would be considered abusive. Okay, it's excessive. But she would have them sit in a little chair. They weren't standing. It wasn't humiliating with their nose in the corner. None of that. Sitting in this tiny little chair, their back was to all the people. They weren't allowed to talk to everyone else while this was going on. But there was a clock sitting in front of them. She would set the timer and set the clock down right in front of them. They had to watch the clock. Why? Because watching a clock is like watching grass grow. It's excruciatingly slow, right? So being a clock watcher is awful at work. And unfortunately, there are some people that you go to a new job and within 2, 3, 4 years, you know everything you need to know. Everything being done becomes very robotic. You get in a rut. And then that translates to, ugh, I don't want to go to work. What's wrong with me? I'm so depressed. I used to love this job. What happened? And without awareness that the ball is coming down, you toss the ball up when you went and got the job. Now the ball's coming down, right? When the ball heads down, you got some choices. You can make plans. You can say, well, let me go to HR and see if I can make a lateral move to another position. Maybe they'll offer me a better position. Maybe I'll get put into management. Maybe I could start my own business, work on my own business 1 day a week and only go to my job 4 days a week as long as I get all my work done. You see my point? You can make plans for how to manage your perceived abandonment, the thing that is going to make you feel frightened or dissatisfied or unhappy. So with marriage and the abandonment issue, it's the same exact thing. If you see that things are going static or stale, then you can make plans. Throw the ball up in the air. What does that mean? I don't know. Go take dance lessons together. Go on a vacation together. Go spend the night at the Holiday Inn. Go into marriage counseling. Whatever. Throw the ball up in the air. Start something new. Right? But what you don't want to do is ever hold on for dear life. And when you're, remember, Barry the bird hanging onto the palm tree frond, hurricane's coming in, and all Barry can think is, this was a safe palm tree for a lot of years. I was doing great hanging out my palm tree. What the hell's happening? When what Barry could have done is said, damn, this is some serious wind. I don't think I'm going to survive this. I better go find a better place to ride this out. Yeah? All right. So I'm done. Anticipatory anxiety is setting up fictional stories in your mind that never come to fruition. Working with anticipatory anxiety of this nature in a clinical setting would include things like turning the fiction around. Instead of your mental capacity making up stories where you will flounder, where you will bobble the ball and screw up, use your imagination to play out a great success. If your fear is you're about to go in, you're about to do that presentation, instead of letting your mind create all these dramas, these fictional dramas of failure, take control of your thoughts, use your imagination to play it out so that you are a great success, so that your presentation is flawless. Don't try to say, no, don't think, I can't use my imagination, don't think, because that's just going to dominate then all of your thoughts. Recognize if you're a person who invents fiction for the future, just accept that that's something in the way that your brain manages and use it to your advantage. Instead of creating dramatic failure, use your imagination and daydream about exquisite success. If you're looking at the end of a marriage and you didn't want the marriage to end, you wanted it to work, instead of looking into your future and seeing nothing and saying, oh my God, I'm never going to be married again, it's going to be horrible, I can't live life without a man or a wife or whatever, instead of doing that, look into your future and use your imagination to say, hey, the truth is, I can do whatever I want to do. I can be whatever I want to be. This is an opportunity for me to go to law school. This is an opportunity for me to start my own business. This is an opportunity for me to reach out to all my old friends from college that I've lost contact with. This is an opportunity for me to go to the gym and work out every single day, just like I always wanted to. Use your imagination for exquisite success, not to create terrifying drama. Right? Okay. Loosely says, I don't daydream anymore. I think I forgot. You didn't forget. You have to, daydreaming gets a bad rap, right? What daydreaming does is it embraces potential. It brings the future into your current focus. If you abandon daydreaming, then how are you ever going to make plans for fun things or for satisfying, worthwhile things? Talking about like geriatric professionals that work in geriatric psychology and working with clients with acceptance therapy. I think for myself, the more that I learned about acceptance therapy, I think the better I became as a human being. When you stop trying to make things perfect, when you stop trying to make things the way someone somewhere told you it ought to be, and you accept where you are and you find the goodness in where you are, then the amount of psychic energy then increases. It takes a great deal of your emotional energy to sit around and worry about what might happen, as opposed to just saying, I feel really good right now. No matter what else is out there, right now, this moment, this is a good moment. I accept that my mom or my dad or my uncle, I accept that they were not really good to me. I accept that. I'm not going to fight against it anymore. It's no more than pages in a book if I don't keep it alive through my emotional fuel. Let my history of abuse stay in that book. It did happen. I wish it didn't happen. I'll let it stay in that book and put that book up on the shelf, because right here, right now, today, I feel good. It will increase the amount of energy tenfold, right? To give up the lifelong looking back into your past and taking an accounting of the people that hurt you. It's exhausting to do that every day. It has some utility. I'm not saying that you compartmentalize everything in your life and you never make sense of the effect of abuse. You do make sense of it, but you cannot do it day after day after day after day. It robs you of your essential life force to embrace today and tomorrow. And where does potential live? In the future, right? Acceptance is definitely key. Once I learned that, it changed everything. Yeah, it's acceptance. The research went a weird direction. they used the idea of forgiveness. Now, this was 25 years ago. They used the idea of forgiveness, and the problem is that the term forgiveness was grounded in theology, right? When people would hear forgiveness, because it's such a big thing that you hear all the time about, God forgives us of our sins. People had a hard time of getting away from that idea that forgiveness meant approval, and it doesn't. And so that's when they transitioned over to acceptance. Acceptance is, yeah, it did happen. Nobody's saying, I forgive you for hurting me. No, you're just saying, you know what, I accept that this person had real problems of their own. They violated me. They betrayed me. They hurt me. But that was an event that happened in my past. And right now, today, where I am, I have potential and I can become whatever it is that I decide I want. So acceptance is really, really therapeutic. Don't let yesterday take up most of today. Exactly. If we fill our days with regrets of yesterday and fear about tomorrow, we have no today. 100%, Callie. That's all I'm saying. 100%. We spend all of our time in regret or anger about the past. And then we switch over to fear about the future. And then we wonder why today we feel sick. Right? So you got to you have to make a choice somewhere. You either got to give up, ruminating on the past, or you got to give up writing horror novels about your future. Your future isn't going to be a horror novel. Even if things are changing, your future will change, but it's not going to be horrible. It'll change, but it may change for the better. And that's something that always makes me smile, because people don't ever come in and say that. Well, I'm getting, my husband's having an affair and he's gone, and I'm scared, my future will be bleak, But why? Maybe he's been dragging you down. Maybe it'll be great to have your own time and your own freedom. And maybe it'll be wonderful on the weekend to say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get on an airplane and go to Disney World and ride a roller coaster. That's what I'm going to do this weekend. And there won't be anybody there to say, no, cost much money. Right? So we never, for some reason, we never look to the future with positive fiction. All right. Let's see. With some people, I have to be careful. Forgiveness is tricky. I have boundaries that must be held. We are in Cindy Watts territory. No, the boundary, look, that's a big thing. Okay. And I'm not belittling any of these other really critical mental health requirements. Boundaries, I spend a great deal of time in one of my settings. I spend a great deal of time teaching how to set boundaries, and here's the bigger one, and you know this, Donna, protecting the boundary once you set it, right? That second part is where so many people falter. So you do have to learn to set the original boundary. You've got to learn, where is this thing becoming toxic, and what is it what's the depth that I want to take out of my life here? But then once you get that boundary in place, you have to be prepared for the pushback, because people that have been invading your health, your peace, when you set boundaries and say, no more, I'm not willing to give up anything to you anymore, they're gonna feel like somehow you have violated them. Well, what do you mean? What do you mean you're not going to do this or that? So part of this whole process about setting healthy boundaries that you hear about very often, especially like in dialectical behavior therapy, yes, you have to know how to set the boundary. You got to figure out the healthiest place to put the boundary. But to me, the most critical point in terms of ultimate success is knowing, preparing for the pushback and knowing what you're going to say and do to keep that boundary in place, to protect that boundary. Hold the line, right, Donna? Hold the line. And it can get nasty in the beginning. People can really feel violated, but remember the goal for why you're doing it. You're doing it so that you can experience a healthy life. Notice that I don't say experience a happy life, because I think happiness is an emotion, and we got a lot of emotions that are the result of chemical reactions in our brain. Sadness is a part of healthy life. People do get sad, people do get angry, people do get happy, and the goal becomes to accept that you're going to have an array of emotions, and don't let any one of those emotions get too big. You don't want any one emotion to completely dominate, right? Anger itself is just an emotion. It's just a chemical reaction. Anger is not bad. It's what people do in their anger that is bad. You can learn to respond to anger in a healthy way. You don't have to be destructive just because you get angry, right? All right. Yes, there's a huge ice storm coming. Or I guess it's already there for some of the states, isn't it? I'd take an armful of old business suits and blouses, skirts I used to wear, cut them up, braid them, and keep stitching my braided rugs. Wow, that is amazing, Mystic. Oh man, I wish you'd take a picture. I would love to see one of your rugs. It can affect the whole family. Sadness is mourning the loss of the relationship you thought you would have. Exactly. Yep. It's nasty where you are, Crime Story. A lot of snow in Virginia. Yeah, I've been watching not Reed Timmer. What's his name? Something y'all. Uh Ryan Hall, y'all. He's got a really great weather show on YouTube. And so like right now with the whole ice storm coming, he's on live. Let me get his let me get his link. Hold on. He's the one that we were looking at with the tornadoes that day. Here we go. Paste. Okay, so here's a YouTube weather channel that you can go watch. Yeah. It does sound beautiful, AP. I wish that Mystic would take a photograph of one of her rugs. I would just love to see it. Hey, Susie Mac. Yeah, Ryan Hall, y'all. Yeah, he's good, isn't he, Cinnamon? South Alabama and little towns all around this land. We say grace and we say ma'am. If you ain't into that, we don't give a damn. All right. Okay, peeps. I had no choice. Yeah. But that's the thing, Susie. Once you go through that process of change, like what you are alluding to, where there was no choice, you learn a lot from that going forward, live each day with intention going forward. Walk toward what you're doing. It's so hard to get rid of them, Kim. It's so hard to get rid of them. Most of them are so expensive, right? And you don't know what to do. Yeah. I would completely promote that, Mystic, if you would do a video. And people love cluttered art studios. That's the genius mind at work. What I wrote about my wondering if I should stop sharing my sad life stories. We think you do what Zelda, I think you do what is good for you. That's the whole point. If you're welcome, Mabel. Thank you for being here, and I appreciate the super chat. That was really sweet of you. Thank you. Zelda, remember what I said. That if you do the goal of the YouTube channel is determined by the creator. If what you're doing is you're trying to make YouTube a career, then you might ask yourself questions like that. You might worry, oh, the content I'm putting up, is that going to get me subs or is that going to lose subs? For me, I don't know that I would want to get into that kind of lifestyle where my safety and my happiness depends upon the whim of the public. I just don't think that sounds healthy. So if you're doing though a YouTube channel and the goal is to just create a place for your ideas or your history or your art, then it doesn't matter if people watch or don't watch, because it's not really for them. Now, if they want to come and join in with you, they're like-minded person, then you welcome that, right? So my answer would be, if telling your stories is good for you, if telling your stories gives you a sense of control and you feel happier after you tell your story, then do it. But if telling your stories is something that you find makes you feel sad, after you tell the stories, you're down and you don't really have any energy, want to do anything, then I would say maybe back off from that just a little bit and take a different direction and figure out some kind of content you can put up that's going to empower you and make you feel more energetic and more happy, right? Trying to meditate, watch a funny show, do something creative. No, I'm with you, Margot. Want to share a few things. I love when my silly goat or llama vids go viral. It's fun. You got 10,000 views on Relax Max. Listen, Zelda, let me tell you something. You got to get your llama content going, because we've got no drama Judge Llama in the Barrymore Few case. So that can be woven into the Barrymore Few case when the time comes. So no drama Judge Llama. We're going to have a good time with that one. No doubt. It's so hard to wake up one day and everything you knew as your life is over. Your entire future is gone. You can't put it back together. You have to start over. It's so difficult, Scottie Nona. There's no illusion. There's no illusion about that. It's difficult. Absolutely. But remember what I said, it doesn't have to be bad. It doesn't have to portend misery. You can structure and engineer a situation you feel comfortable with. I'm gonna get some Valentine stuff for the llama and make a few videos of Relax Max. So cute. Zelda, you can share your channel link. Why don't you share your channel link? Let's see. I'm gonna see if I could hold on, y'all. I'll get Zelda's channel. Y'all got to go over and see the she's got so much to see though. She's got these amazing cats. She has an amazing yard. her llama is gorgeous. She's got a black and white cat, a black and white llama. She's got a great copy. Okay. So here's this is the channel link for Zelda. And she does Scammer Granny. Everybody loves Scammer Granny. I know, Sketty. It can be. But remember what I said, in small steps, you got to start walking toward a goal. You got to come up with something. Maybe it's something as small as I'm going to start working out every day or every 3 days or whatever, right? Could be something small. Oh, it's the neighbor's llama and goats. Yeah, but it's still fun, right? Still fun. I moved back home after being away for 30 years, and I'm trying to find the old places I used to visit. I'm just on my new life's journey. Yeah. But I think going back and looking for old places, sort of nostalgic kind of thing. I think that's something that we all do, and just to see, what it's like. What I've seen is that whenever I do that, the place always looks so small. It looks much smaller than I remembered it. I forgave Cinnamon Hot Hot for moving far away from boring Oregon. Scammer Granny is the best. Absolutely, Kathy. I love Scammer Granny. There you go, Kathy. You know what? You make a joke about that, but I actually worked with someone that they experienced a very real life lost. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to go into the details of it, but something that was very difficult, any of us would struggle with, and it was devastating, right? And we went through a process. This woman really and truly had not been out of her bed or bedroom in more than a year. She was not taking showers. She was literally sleeping all day long, every day. I mean, that she just slept. She was almost like willing herself to die, right? And that was really how it started. Was, the initial goal was, you got to get up and move to the sofa 6 hours a day. You got to lay on the sofa. You can sleep, you can do whatever you want to do, but get up from your bed and go to the sofa. So that was the first step. And inside the living room where the sofa was filled with just mountains and mountains of boxes, because they had moved and she never unpacked all the boxes. And because she wanted to see the television, she had to start unpacking boxes. So the deal was 1 box a day. And then that would be part of the goal. And so little by little, she added more and more every day. We went to walk. They had a long driveway. So walking down to the mailbox at the end of the driveway and back, and that got her a little bit of exercise. Then she started going to the gym. And so as she began moving her body again, then the chemicals in her brain began to normalize and things, got better. So you can make jokes about that, Kathy, but that is definitely a great goal to have. To get up, put your clothes on, put your makeup on. It's a great goal. It's a great goal. Can't remember my childhood. I have a lot of anxiety and panic. Wonder if I should try getting hypnosis. I don't know. When you learn a lot about hypnosis, so hypnosis is just a hyper relaxed state, right? people can't make you do things that you normally wouldn't do. That's all show. That's not reality. And frankly, um, an ethical psychologist or psychiatrist that's using hypnotherapy, they're not going to want to make you do something that you would normally want to do, right? But the goals for hypnosis are really healthy, in that anyone who develops an ability to relax, that's a person who's going to feel good about things. So let me, that brings up something else too, and then I think I'm going to end this live. Brings up the idea of, well, I went to a therapist once, I didn't like it, so it didn't last but just a couple of times. You have to realize this. You're looking for someone to talk to, and as animals, there may be people that you just naturally feel aversive to or you naturally embrace. So just because you go to one therapist or one psychologist, that just may not be a good fit for you. So as you first get out there and begin thinking, I think I want to go through this process of therapy of some sort, whatever, whether it's dialectical behavior therapy or cognitive behavioral with trauma, or acceptance therapy, or some of the health psychology, tools and techniques. If you decide you want to go through that process, my advice would be to make an appointment with about 3 or 4 therapists or psychologists, and then go meet them all. And then you're going to feel much more informed about which one that you felt the most at ease with, right? So that's the way I would do it to start. I wouldn't just pick one and go and think that was going to be the be all end all. Um, uh, I think I gotta be careful how I say this. If you feel like so when problems come from a place of trauma, especially early childhood trauma, because trauma in childhood actually changes the structure of the brain and how it processes anxiety. You probably need to talk to someone who understands the physiology, and you might want to try to talk with a psychologist. That does not mean that therapists are not amazing. They are. The difference, though, is a depth of knowledge, right? So with a therapist, you're talking about somebody who went to school, usually 30 to 60 college hours. For a psychologist, they're going to have uh, I believe I have 800 college hours, and I've got over 5,000 training, observation, supervised training hours. So, and it's not that one is better than the other. Don't get me wrong. It's not that one is better than the other. It's that it's level of understanding. So we all do the same type of therapy, but with the whole psychology thing, because we're required to take so many classes like physio, neurology classes, um, we kind of understand the process of anxiety and how we might be able to intervene. So I do see people, I can tell you this, I do see people where I may see them 2, 3, 4 times initially, and then I write a treatment plan, and then I make a referral over to a couple of LPCs that are, that I work with, and then they do the plan that, well, I've done that before. Can you gather our addresses for us in case we feel like shipping stuff to each other? Yeah, so I know, Mystic, that there are there's a lot of people, there's a lot of channels. Let me say it this way. There's a lot of channels, the smaller channels that like to befriend one another. The subscribers like to befriend one another and send things. Please let me give you this advice, okay? If that's what you want to do, you develop a friendship or you want to do Christmas cards and things like that, please get a post office box. And my advice would be to go to the town next to yours or 2 towns over and get a post office box there, maybe next to where you work, because there are unstable people on YouTube. There are. And unfortunately, I found out they will track you down. Stephanie Harlow, if you're into the whole true crime thing, everybody knows who Stephanie Harlow is. She's awesome, right? She ended up having a stalker that she had to move. Her whole family, they had to move. So don't underestimate. People are always lurking, quietly watching things that are happening, right? We saw the other day, we had a lady that was recording the side chat so she could report back who was in my channel. It was very odd, right? Very controlling, very strange. The lies on, right? No, that was stupid. I wanted to try. I'm afraid of liver. Okay. All right, peeps. Well, we've been here for quite a while. I invite you to go back to the beginning of the video if you just joined. And we're going to be talking about Jodi Arias later on. Okay. All right. Y'all have a great day. It was good talking to you. Bye.